The way Elvis was murdered really makes me feel very uncomfortable with the way South Africans are as human beings. If you look at the video, if you watch the video, some of you don't have the guts to watch. Even some of us have got difficulty in watching the video. But what will surprise you is that these South Africans or some South Africans are very comfortable with the actual scene, with the actual events happening, with the Elvis burning, falling down, and crying for his life and showing a lot of pain. They are very comfortable. They are all around him, and some of them are even beating him as he was burning, throwing stones on him as he was burning. Someone, a very mature guy, a very mature citizen of South Africa, pouring what I assume was maybe fuel or a petrol, or it was not very flammable. Maybe it was paraffin or something like that. Is that normal for human beings? Because the way they murdered Elvis is surely indicative of something. It says something about South Africans as people. About some South Africans, I wouldn't want to label every South African like that, because not every South African was there. What does it say about some South Africans? What message does it send out to the world about South Africans? I think the problem here is, let us just address the elephant in the room. Most of the South Africans, most of these South Africans grew up in shacks. And when you grow up in a shack, you can't claim to have a very normal life. You grow up in one room, or maybe you have tried to divide it into two rooms. You are sharing the same room with the sister. Your sister is sleeping there. You sleep with your sister's ass right in your face. And when your mother is bathing in the morning to go to work, some water is splashing over your face while you are sleeping. Shack life can never make a normal human being. You can never be a normal human being when you call a shack your home. And that is where we have a difference between South Africans and us Zimbabweans. Because Zimbabweans, when we move into towns, we already have our homes in the rural areas. There's no Zimbabweans. A normal Zimbabwean we just have a town or a shack. We don't have most of those again in Zimbabwe. Most of those shacks, we don't have them in Zimbabwe. If we have any, we grow up in rural areas, most of us. Decent homes, decent family, cultured by our parents, the normal way of being a human being, up until we decide sometimes to go into town. When we think conditions in the towns are favorable, and when we find where to stay, we just don't move into town. Then you find a place, then you start making a shack and call it a home. And the problem with South Africans, I think, is that they grow up in shacks and they call these shacks home. They have their children there, and their children will have their children in these shacks. And this becomes a vicious circle of breeding people who are not actually normal. I don't think you can grow up in a shack and become a normal human being, which is what I witness every time I see South Africans killing a foreigner. It shows an absurdity in growth, an absurdity in nurturing, that there is something missing. How come South Africans really have these shacks all over, and they call them homes? They are not homes, those things. They can't breed normal human beings. Even if children will turn up not to be children. Look at the way they killed him. Surely this is what brought me to this kind of conclusion. As Zimbabweans, you say you want to replace Zimbabweans. You can't replace a Zimbabwean. You can't. Just try. You will discover that you can't. Because Zimbabweans are a totally different breed. The way we were raised up, almost all of us Zimbabweans, we come straight from the rural areas. If we, some of us, of course, some of us grew up in towns, but not in the conditions that we find in South Africa there, that some of you grow up in, and you think that those conditions are normal. Why don't you go to the villages if you have nothing else to do in town and maybe start some farming there? Instead of making urban life your life when you can't actually manage it. This is what I see. Because Zimbabweans, when we are growing up, we become something else totally different. Because you can't replace us, because you have to grow up the way we grew up. You have to be reborn if you want to replace a Zimbabwean, because we always go the extra mile because of the way we were raised. Zimbabweans always go the extra mile, and you don't even understand what that means. We always go the extra mile. We are a special breed. I'm telling you this, and I'm not even trying to exaggerate. You will discover that when you are employed wherever you think you are replacing us, you won't even match us, match the way we were working there. It will be totally different. When these Zimbabweans come into South Africa, usually they occupy space that you were not using, and you find it being used by a Zimbabwean. You think that they are taking up your jobs. And why do employers prefer them? You are saying the employer, they prefer them because maybe they prefer cheap wages. No, that's not the case. It's because of their attitude. Zimbabweans have got an attitude that you can't match, you South Africans. You can't match the attitude of Zimbabwe when it comes to work. Work ethic that you can't match. If you know anything about work ethics, I don't think you know anything about that. Some of you South Africans, especially those who grew up in shacks, you don't know anything about that. You need a lot of maybe decent breeding for you to understand some of the things that I'm saying. And decent breeding is actually what you missed, and what your children will still miss if you keep on staying in those shacks. Zimbabweans would prefer staying in those shacks because it's only a temporary thing. When they're in South Africa, they are not there for life. Every Zimbabwean who is in South Africa has got a home in Zimbabwe. Every Zimbabwean who is even in Blawa has got a home in the rural areas. Conditions might not be totally good in town, but they've got a home where they go to during the holidays, weekends, or when they are on leave. They can at least smell and breathe fresh air in the rural areas where their shit is together and they can do whatever they want there. What about you? When you are all clogged up in your shacks, and sometimes you complain about it. You say, I grew up in a shack, like this Lux was saying, I grew up in a shack in Soweto. Why did you grow up in a shack in Soweto? Why didn't you go to the rural areas? Why didn't your mother go to the rural areas and then have you grow up there in an environment which is conducive for children to grow in? Sometimes you talk about it like you are victims. South Africa is a very spacious country. There is a lot of space, and I think in terms of rural areas. But you South Africans, some of you who are misguided, it might have been your parents who made bad decisions. But look how it affects you. When you kill human beings like this, it means that it's something that is not going to go away from you, because killing a human being like that and it doesn't affect you. You don't go mad, or you sleep normally at night. It means there's something totally wrong with your mind. Something totally wrong with the way you think. Something totally wrong with your character, the whole persona that you are. There's something totally wrong. You can't be a normal human being. And I think it is because of these sharks. These sharks breed bad people. And I don't think you can blame the government for that. You blame yourself for rushing to town when you have nothing else to do there, when at least you are not prepared for that town life that you are rushing into. In Zimbabwe, you only go to town when you think town is ready for you, or you are ready for it. You can get a job there, you have got some training, you've got what. If you are there, maybe your parents have a house there, is decent enough, there are bedrooms, there are what. Not a situation whereby the mother is sleeping on top of a son is sleeping on top of a sister, and things like that. It can't breed a normal life. That's kind of I don't know why it is like that. And I don't even think you South African are victims, which is why sometimes when some politicians talk about land, you don't even understand what they are saying. If you could go into the rural areas, so if you could get land, I don't think you can even use land properly. Do you even think of land in terms of use, or think of land in terms of building another shack? Land has got so many uses and it can be very productive. And we Zimbabweans, we understand that. Which is why I say, even if you try to replace us, wherever you are trying, like desperately like you are trying to do, you are saying Zimbabweans are criminals. You, Lax, your father was a criminal. You admitted it yourself. I have got it on video that you say your father was not only a small-time criminal, he was a big-time criminal. Robbing banks, that is really big time. Was he a foreigner? All these crimes, even in America, there they did a study. They realized that by chasing away illegal immigrants, you are not taking down the rate of crime. The rate of crime remains the same, even if we try to take out illegal immigrants. They have got about 12 million of them in America right now. They are trying to. That's why they give them the green card. They realize these people are very productive. And what you are doing is only trying maybe to scapegoat Zimbabweans, to make sure that now you've got so many problems you can solve, or rather you can pretend to solve some of your problems by chasing Zimbabweans and pretend that they are causing all your problems instead of going after criminals. I know that the police force is useless. They are fed, all of them, because they take bribes, and these bribes are so heavy they end up using the money to buy food. There's so much food for them. They end up developing very heavy bodies. They can't even run. They can't even subdue criminals. I understand all that, but that is not a problem that we caused ourselves. In Zimbabwe, there we've got a very effective police force. I'm telling you, you can laugh at us about other things, but our country is coming up, is becoming better. They have under sanctions. And you, Lax, you went to as far as Ethiopia. Why didn't you go to Zimbabwe? You can still go to Zimbabwe. No one will threaten you there. We don't ban people like you do in South Africa. Just go to Zimbabwe and try and understand why this is happening. Why we have. And you are talking about, you guys talk about Zimbabweans coming to South Africa as a new thing. There is Wonela, which happened during the time of Rhodesia, where it was an organized thing between the South African mines to get labor from Rhodesia to work in the South African mines, because there was not enough labor in the South African mines. Where were the South Africans? Less enough to go underground to dig. And for a long time, they were getting labor from Rhodesia. When was that? In the 70s. I think maybe even in the 60s. How far back is that? Most of you were not even born. Even you, Lax, maybe you were not born. Immigration had already started. People were moving from Zimbabwe to South Africa. And most of you people, most of you guys, most of you South Africans who are claiming that, hey, these illegal immigrants, some of you don't even have the papers because you are children of immigrants. Most South Africans, if the government has to do a real thorough mop-up of who has documents in South Africa, you discover that most South Africans don't have documents. They don't have birth certificates, they don't have ID. Because they are children of immigrants. Now they pretend that because they've been there maybe since the 70s, they think that they are South Africans. They chase away other illegal immigrants. And yet they are children of illegal immigrants there. Just to a third, something that came to my knowledge, that most South Africans don't have papers, and they sure don't, because sometimes when I was watching a program, there's a program that I was watching on SABC, where you will discover that people don't have documents in South Africa. They have children, and their children have children, and they don't have documents. So how do you know that you are originally South African? You come from which part of South Africa? And I think it is because you don't have any rural roots where you can go down and dig down and find out your parentage or your roots or your family tree, whatever you call it. Maybe your family tree is somewhere there in Zimbabwe or in Mozambique or in Botswana or in Malawi. We have Malawians in Zimbabwe. We don't think that this problem is only very, very unique with South Africa. We used to have Malawians coming from Malawi to work in, even Zambians coming to work in Zimbabwe, in the Zimbabwean mines, as immigrants. We embrace them. Most of them right now, they've got their own rural villages. in Zimbabwe, they have rural village. You have to have a rural village for you to be a normal human being. Especially if you are not that well organized like most of you are. Most of you who are running around with this Dudula thing, you are not that organized and you are not that educated. Because if you're educated, you discover that foreigners sometimes are quite a good incentive to a country. They are not an evil. You have to make use of foreigners, and some people, some South Africans, some smart South Africans are making a lot of money from foreigners. Smart South Africans are making big money from foreigners by using foreigners. You use the resources that surround you, and there are a lot of foreigners who are surrounding them, and they happen to be, most of them are Zimbabweans. And then you start chasing them away. What kind of a foolish act is that? I'm very saddened by the way, especially the way they killed Elvis Nyati. That is unforgivable, I'm telling you. I watched the video. I only watched it once because I can't watch it twice. I can't watch it again, but I watched it. You can't kill a cow and then the human, these animal rights people would... if you kill a cow like that, it's still unacceptable. If you kill a donkey like that, it's unacceptable. If you kill a chicken, a dog like that, that is not acceptable. But you killed a human being like that, and you were surrounding him, and it looked very normal to you. In Zim, you can't kill a human being like that. And people will surround you, and people will be crying all over. Women will be running away with holding their heads and what. That is normal human behavior. But you women there, because they grew up in shacks, everything is game for them. They find this is okay. It's okay to laugh at a burning human being. And even it's okay to just beat him. Why are you beating a person who is already burning anyway? You are punishing him so that when he dies, he can understand that what he did was bad. They wanted 300 rands, and he didn't have the 300 rand that they wanted. He wanted 50 rand. So they murdered him because of that. It doesn't make sense to me that you were beating him while he was burning. It doesn't. It will never make sense to me. Maybe your South African government, because right now what I discovered is that they didn't go after the people, the culprits, because for the South African government, for the ANC, I discovered that the ANC is quite into this. It's very normal. Nothing wrong happened there. Instead of going after people who murdered, because that is murder of the worst kind. People like that should rot in jail. But they are going about their normal business right now today. Those people who were pouring more fuel to Elvis as he was burning, those people who were beating him as he was struggling for his life, right now are roaming around free. There's no investigation to find out who these people are. Where are they? Rather, there was a blitz on foreigners. That you foreigners, you cause us a lot of problems. By burning, you really cause us problems. By dying here, you cause us problems. So we are trying to fish you out. They will go after you. And you think that will solve your South African problem. Your problems are going to be with you for a very long time. And this is just the beginning, if not the middle of the beginning. They will be with you for a very long time. This criminal thing. You know that there's about 58 people are murdered on average in South Africa every day. These are not normal human beings. I think you need to do away with the sharks. The government, the one thing that the government needs to do away with are those sharks, so that the people who are growing up, their minds are straight. At least they grow up into a normal human being without the growing up in a shack with everyone entangled there with the kind of lifestyle happening in a shack, everything. You know, it can't breed a normal human being. That's my conclusion. You have to do away with the shacks. Build normal houses for your people, or rather, most of the people who are not doing anything, just drive them out into the rural areas, find them somewhere where they would stay, and build them normal houses, real decent houses. No, not actually build houses for them. Make them build their own houses. Just give them a piece of land where they can mold their own bricks and build their own houses. It's very easy to build a house in the rural areas. You can even find volunteers who would want to build a house for you for some very funny charge. Very simple, and then you live a clean, simple life, because you have no business being in town. Actually, if you have no business being in town, you just as well go to the rural areas. And that is another problem that South Africa has, that there are a lot of people in towns who are just doing nothing. They were just walking around. We are just idle there. Their minds are idle all the time. And an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And this is the result of what you see from people who are just, it's a bad situation. Because these are products of sharks, these people who are doing all these things. It's very sad to say, but it's terrible.